Hey everyone, and welcome back. So, as you may remember, a little over a month ago I did a video on a girl who does not believe that biological sex exists. Well, since then, the queen bitch of the universe has chimed in on the subject. Yeah, that's right. Laci Green doesn't believe in biological sex either. I mean, seriously, you guys, is there any subject that you won't take a contrarian point of view on? Oh well, let's see what the special snowflake brigade has offered up today. Enjoy!
Oh, hi, Internet!
Yeah, hi there. I'm not really that happy to see you, but go on.
Let's talk about intersex, aka disorders of sex development.
I don't know if you realize this, but you yourself just admitted that it's a disorder. Keep that in mind.
Before we can really talk about and understand intersex, we have to talk about sex. Are you ready to get your science on? I sure hope so.
You getting your science on?
Sex has 4 primary characteristics. Your genitals on the outside, your sex organs on the inside, your chromosomes, part of your DNA, and your hormones, which are secreted by your glands into your blood.
But you do realize that all of these features are controlled by your DNA, right?
These primary sex characteristics are typically present when you're born, and they work together to produce your secondary sex characteristics.
Well, technically, they work for DNA. DNA is boss.
Those come a little later, during that notorious hormone party known as puberty. Secondary sex characteristics are things like chest hair, facial hair, pubic hair, larynx size, which determines the pitch of your voice, height, menstruation, muscle to body fat ratio, a whole bunch of stuff.
My heart always quickens with joy when I hear such technical terms as a whole bunch of other stuff.
Based on what we observe, human beings sort ourselves into 2 sex categories, male and female.
Yeah, so please tell me how that's a bad thing.
But as it turns out, there are actually more than 2 sexes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many genders Tumblr helped Facebook invent, it doesn't change the biological facts.
And that brings us to intersex. Intersex is an umbrella term. It's used to describe people who don't fit into the typical definitions of male and female because of variations in their sex characteristics.
I hope everyone noticed the medical terminology on her list because they are in fact all genetic defects. That doesn't mean that people suffering from this are worth any less, but it's not a third gender.
About 1 in every 2,000 people is intersex, and there are lots of different forms of it.
1 in 2,000, you say? Well, another way to put that is 0.5%, which is within the expected parameters of birth defects. However, bear in mind that the only number I could verify was 0.3%.
Genital variation. The person might have a fused labia, a very tiny penis, or a very large clitoris. Sex organ variation.
And none of those things even come close to justifying inventing a new gender. In fact, I'm sure people who suffer from these conditions would be offended that you want to put them into a third sex.
The ovaries may not be fully developed, or there's something of a vulva on the outside and testes on the inside.
Oh, and you want to make it so that they have to disclose this fact in all government documents and stuff? I don't think they would be comfortable with that.
Chromosomes. A person might have a penis and XX chromosomes.
That is so unusual that I dare you to go out and find even 1 case of it. We have long since left a 0.5% here.
Or XXY, or X, or XX and XY. All the X's! And a little bit of Y.
That still doesn't change the fact that it's an extremely rare genetic defect. There are more people born without arms than people born with double Y chromosomes.
And hormones. Their cells may not respond to testosterone. Now, when you take all these variations that can happen into account, it's easier to see how sex is actually a continuum with male and female at the ends. It's not just 2 strict categories, right?
Right? Wrong.
Give me a break. We don't create spectrums or continuums or genders based on a 0.5% birth defect rate.
A little word about categories. Our brains naturally categorize things. It helps us to simplify information so that we can more easily draw conclusions about the world and save our brains a lot of energy. But it's important to remember the sex categories of male and female are actually generalizations.
Hey, moron! Fucking moron! Something that applies to 99.5% of the population is not a generalization. It's a pretty accurate model of a reality.
And those generalizations generalizations are created by us, by humans. These generalizations are sometimes medically helpful, particularly when we're talking about things like puberty, pregnancy, menopause, menstruation, your risk for certain diseases and cancers, breast cancer, prostate cancer, heart disease. All of those things are affected by your sex.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good argument for having real sexes, not made-up Tumblr sexes.
But there's still no boundary. There's no checklist about what qualifies someone as female or male.
Yes, there is. You even went through this in the beginning of the video. Chromosomes, remember?
And that has created a whole lot of problems for people who exist on the sex continuum.
I think what you really mean is that it's created a lot of problems for people on Tumblr.
When a beautiful little intersex baby comes into the world, doctors and parents are eager to assign it a sex and a gender.
Well, to be fair, doctors assign sex based on scientific methodologies. Parents may assign gender, if they so choose. It's intellectually dishonest to imply that these two groups are somehow working in concert.
These assignments are based on babies' genitals, whether they have something that looks more like a clitoris or more like a penis. Now, for some intersex conditions, you can't even tell by looking. It might be chromosomal and the person doesn't know till much later in their life. So they get assigned male or female and they go on their way. But if it's not so readily obvious, doctors will just sort of arbitrarily pick a sex.
Well, we can certainly have a discussion on how the medical community should handle these rare cases, but creating a third sex is not the solution.
Usually based on whether or not they think that your genitals could penetrate something, that is what makes a male. Which, when you think about it, is a really weird standard.
Why is that so weird? That's important for every other sexually dimorphic species on the planet, so why not for humans?
More so in the past, but still to this day, doctors will perform surgery on infants to make their genitals look more normal.
They don't do it because of some sense of aesthetics or evil. They do it to give that person a chance of a normal and happy life. But like you've already admitted, that doesn't happen much anymore. But there are cases when it's actually imperative that the procedure is carried out while a child is an infant. They don't do this to hurt your identity politics agenda. They do it to help that person.
1, an infant can't give informed consent.
That includes every decision parents make in their child's best interest. What's your point?
2, there is really no normal. Even dyadic genitals, which fit into the sex binary, have so much variation.
Doctors don't operate because of variations.
3, and this is key, there's typically no medical need to operate.
Well, here's the thing, Laci. Only doctors can determine if there's a medical need to operate.
And 4, it can compromise the person's sexual pleasure, functioning, and sense of agency down the road.
Well, if that happens, the doctor screwed up badly somewhere. Medical screw-ups are not a gender. It's a malpractice suit waiting to happen.
For these reasons and more, it's crucial to leave intersex babies' genitals alone if there's no medical necessity.
Well, like I've pointed out before, doctors actually avoid surgery as much as they can. They don't want to operate unnecessarily.
So what's with the surgeries anyway? Intersex gives people a lot of anxiety because it poses this paradox. People think that sex and gender are the same thing, when really they are two different things. Sex, male, female, intersex, pertains to biology, even though the ways that we understand that biology is socially constructed.
There have been males and females living on this planet for hundreds of millions of years, but it only took Tumblr about 2 years to fuck it all up.
Gender, on the other hand, refers to the interactions between our psychology, our culture and socialization, and our identities.
I understand that gender and gender roles have to do with societal pressures and all that. But for fuck's sakes, you guys, biological sex is so easy to understand that a 3-year-old can do it.
But in a society where sex and gender are treated as the same thing, if a parent can't discern their child's sex, they can't discern their child's gender.
As with any other genetic defect, it's tragic. How do you think parents of a child with Down syndrome feel? We don't invent genders because of these things.
And that poses a lot of social, cultural questions about how they will raise the child. And this is an important question that I think all parents should ask themselves, not just the parents of intersex children.
Well, in that case, they should also be asking, what will I do if my kid has Down syndrome, childhood leukemia, autism, is born without arms, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. There are a lot of tragic things that can happen to a child. Fortunately, the statistical chance of it happening is low, which is fortunate because if parents kept thinking about all these things, there would be no children made.
How can we raise children without strictly prescribed gender roles, without all these expectations based on their genitals?
Well, I know that your solution would be to invent more sexes. I, for one, however, would suggest that we make make sure that everyone has the same opportunity regardless of which sex they're born into. Deceptively simple, I know, but I think you see the logic in it.
I want to know what y'all think down below.
Well, rest assured, I'm not going anywhere near your down below. Anyway, that concludes our show for tonight, so thanks for watching and see you next time.